And here we go with Excel lesson 37 from the 4th grade. Today we're going to be learning about different sorts of lines and line segments and measuring to the nearest quarter inch or the nearest half centimeter. A lot of information, a lot of things to learn today. Let's get started with a little bit of a joke here. What sound do porcupines make when they kiss? What sounds do porcupines make when they kiss? Well, you'll have to stay tuned to find out the answer to that later on. So first of all, let's talk about what we see here on this picture. We have AB written right here with a line on the top and an arrow on both sides. This is the way we write to represent line AB. We write 2 points that are on the line, and we put an arrow on each side of the symbol that goes above it, and we're representing line AB. Now in math, a line goes forever and ever in both directions. Straight line, it just keeps going forever and ever and ever. It never stops. I know that's hard to imagine, but so when we talk about a line or draw a line, we have to put arrows on both ends to show that it keeps going. If you're talking about a piece of the line, like you cut it here and you cut it there, you've got this little chunk of line, we call that a line segment. Here below we see a line segment. This is called line segment CD. Notice the difference in the symbol that's written above the CD. It's just a little chunk without the arrows written on both sides. So this means line AB and this means segment CD. You're going to be asked to write that a lot, especially on tests. And if you just write CD on your test, you're not going to get full credit because CD means point C and point D. It does not mean the actual segment that goes between those. You have to put a symbol over the top. Again, that meaning CD, or if this would just kept going and we wanted to talk about the whole line, we would write CD with a line on the top or with 2 arrows on each end, an arrow on each end. That's called line CD. Now lines that would never cross no matter how far they go in both directions, like railroad tracks, are called parallel lines. 2 lines that never cross and never would cross. Lines that would eventually end up crossing are called intersecting lines, even if they don't cross in the drawing. So if I draw this and I draw that, these lines are not parallel, they're intersecting, because if you remember, lines keep going forever and ever, so if they kept going out this way, right about there, these 2 lines would intersect or cross over each other. Those are called intersecting lines. Now another thing we need to learn is how to read a ruler. If you do not have a ruler on you right now, I'd like you to pause, which probably none of you do, I'd like you to pause the video, go get a ruler and bring it back to the video and get ready to learn a little bit more about the ruler. Okay, this is tricky. We are going to learn to the nearest quarter inch or the nearest 1/4. Here, let me make that a little bit darker there. The nearest 1/4 inch, okay, which is another name for a quarter. A fourth is a quarter, just like a fourth of a dollar. 4 quarters makes a dollar. Each one of these is called a quarter because it's a dollar split into fourths. If you can understand that, it's going to make it easier for you to understand the ruler. So from here, this spot here to right here is 1 inch, right? You should know that by now. And if we want to go halfway from 0 to 1, you can see that's about halfway, and there's an extra long line right there. That's the half-inch mark, and you should have already learned that. Well, think about our dollar. If I split the dollar in half, each half is a 50-cent piece, right? Okay, so this is half of the dollar, and that's half of a dollar. And then if I split each one of those halves into half, I get a quarter of a dollar or a fourth of a dollar, 25 cents in each one. So this spot is a quarter, 1/4, and to this spot is 1/2 or 2 quarters. Another way to name that would be 2/4, and then right here would be 3/4 or 3 quarters, And then here is 1/2 right there, 1. And it's the same thing on a ruler. So I've got this spot right here is halfway. If I split each one of those in half, like this and like this, these are 1/4 of an inch. So this extra long line right there and extra long one right there are my 1/4 inch marks. And this is 1/4 right here. And this is 3/4 right here. Well, what happened to 2/4? 2/4 is right in the middle because 2/4 is the same thing as 1/2. Take a look at your ruler and make sure you understand what that is on your own ruler. Also, you need to understand how we count by fourths. Well, we start with 0, let's say first, and then 1/4, and then the next fourth after that is 2/4, which is the same thing as a half, and then the next fourth after 2/4 is 3/4, and then the next fourth is 1/2, because 4/4 makes a whole. If they tell you to measure to the nearest 1/4 inch, you could get an answer of 1/4, 2/4, or a half. It's better to write it as a half, or 3/4, or you could even get an answer of a whole inch. Like it could say measure to the nearest 1/4 inch, and your answer could simply be 3, because maybe that's the nearest 1/4 inch. And it just keeps going from there. We got 1 and 1/4, and then 1 and 1/2, and then 1 and 3/4, and then 1 and 4/4, which is the same thing as 2. And so let me clear this off and kind of point those out to you again. All right. Oh, good. All went away. And so let's take a look here. We've got, this is 0/4. Here's 1/4 there. There's 2/4 or 1/2. Here is 3/4 right here. 4/4 or 1 inch is there. This is 5/4, which is 1 and 1/4. And then right here we have 6/4, which is 1 and 2/4 or 1 1/2. And then right there we have 1 and 3/4. Right there is 2 inches or 8/4. That's actually 8/4. If you were to count all the fourths, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 8/4 to there. And then the next spot is 2 and 1/4 right here. And then this is 2 1/2 or 2 and 2/4, 2 and 3/4, and this is 3 or 12/4. And so you can just see it keeps on going like that, keep adding 1/4 of an inch. But remember that 1 inch could be a nearest 1/4 inch because it's 4/4. The other thing that you need to learn here is half centimeters. If you flip your ruler around and you look at the side that has, probably says mm's over there, which means millimeters, each one of these little teeny lines here are millimeters. The numbers represent the big lines. Okay, so in every, these are centimeters. That's a centimeter. That's 2 centimeters right to there. This to here is 7 centimeters and so on. But there are 10 millimeters in every centimeter. So if we were to count all these little dots, all these little lines all the way along, this would be 70 millimeters to that 7 centimeter mark. And then what we need to understand is where the half centimeters are. This big line in between the 2 and the 3 is 2 1/2 centimeters. If they tell you to measure to the nearest half centimeter, your answer could be in between the numbers, or it could be on the numbers, because again, each one of these is a half a centimeter. Let's go along counting. Let me clear this off and then we'll go along counting all of our, here we go. Let's get rid of that. And then let's go along counting our half centimeters. This is 0 half centimeters. The next half centimeter is right there. That's 1/2. That's 1, 1 1/2, 2, 2 1/2, 3, 3 1/2, 4, 4 1/2, 5, 5 1/2, 6, and so on. And so if you measure a line segment that comes right to here, then that would be 4 centimeters. But if it went all the way to here, right to there, that would be 4 1/2 centimeters. Okay, now what I'd like you to do is take your ruler, let me undo that, and measure, just do line segment number 1 and write the answer right, whoa, fix that, and write the answer right over here. And don't forget to put a label. Kids always forget their labels when they measure these. You are measuring to the nearest 1/4 inch on this, and see if you can figure out how long segment AB is to the nearest 1/4 inch. Make sure you start right on that line next to the 0, or the line at the edge of the ruler as your 0 mark, and line that up perfectly with the edge of this line segment where the A is. So pause the video, get an answer, and then turn it back on to see if you got it right. All right, so you should have put your ruler like right up next to this. So that is this, that ending, that beginning line segment. The beginning of the line segment lines up perfectly with the beginning of the ruler, or the 0 spot on the ruler. And then if we come down here, we can see that the end of it comes down pretty close to that big line right there, which is past 3 inches, and here's 3.5 right here, so that would be 3.25 inches. 3.25 inches. So I got to move that out of the way, and you should have written 3 1/4 inches on there. Okay, now that you've done that one, pause the video, try number 2, and then turn it back on when you're ready for the solution. Okay, so again, got to line that ruler up perfectly with the beginning. If we follow this one down all the way to the end, it's pretty close, and yours is going to look a little bit different than mine. It's not going to be perfectly exactly the same as my ruler, because this is like blown up on the screen, but it comes out really near that big line there, and this is 4 inches to this line. This next larger line there is 4 1/4 inches, and that's 4.5. See, because here's 5, here's 4 right here, halfway in the middle is 4.5. So you should have written the answer of 4.5 inches on there. Let me get all this cleared off before I go on. And there we go. Okay. Let's move this ruler out of the way and see this bottom part down here. It says 4.5 is called a mixed number. Mixed number because it is made up of a whole number 4 and a fraction 1/2. When adding mixed numbers, the fraction parts are added separately from the whole portion. So you can see, like when you do your check answers, you're going to add just the half, which is added to nothing because there's no fractions in the other parts, and then you add the 2, 4, and 1 together to get 7. This is just teaching you how to add your check answers. So there's our answers again to what you should have gotten on the last part. And now we're going to measure these to the nearest 1/2 centimeter. Pause the video, try number 3, and see if you can figure out what the nearest 1/2 centimeter measurement is on line segment AB. Turn it back on when you're ready for the solution. Okay, so again, you should have taken the ruler and lined it up perfectly with the edge of that ruler, or the beginning line at 0, lined up with the beginning of the line segment right there. By the way, your ruler is going to be slightly different than mine again. And then the end of this comes down really close to the 13. And so I believe the answer, let me see, is 13 on that one. 13 centimeters. Might have to change that answer in a second. Don't change your answer yet. Let me double check, because my ruler is a little bit different than the one that you're seeing there. And then go ahead and measure number 4 and see what you think that comes out to be. Pause the video, turn it back on when you have the answer. And it looks like that, if you line it up perfectly, comes out right here at about halfway between the 6 and the 7. So we're going to call that 6.5 centimeters. And then pause the video and measure segment EF. Okay, so you should have already measured EF, and we notice that this comes down right here to about the 11, so the answer is 11 centimeters. And again, if you put 11.5, you need to know that it doesn't have to come out to have a half on the answer just because we're measuring to the nearest 1/2 centimeter, because every whole centimeter is also a 1/2 centimeter. So here we have our answers, and it looks like I did get them right. Awesome. Hopefully you got them right also. And the last part, we're asking how many inches are there in a yard? Okay, so there are 12 inches in a foot, and there are 3 feet in a yard. Can you use that information? Here's a ruler right here, 12 inches, a ruler, 12 inches, and there's 3 of these. If we were to line them up next to each other, end to end, we would have a yard. So how many inches are in a yard? Pause the video, write the answer, then turn it back on. You should have put 36 inches. Now, did you justify that? Did you show how you got that answer? There's 12 inches in each yard, and there's 3 feet in a yard, and so 12 times 3 is 36 inches in that yard. And that's it for today, but let me give you the answer to the riddle before we go. And the riddle was, or joke, what sound do porcupines make when they kiss? And the sound they make is, ouch!